Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, your number one place for deep, honest, and fearless analysis of South African politics. If you're passionate about understanding the hidden dynamics shaping our democracy, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. Today, we are diving into a political firestorm that has reignited old tensions, challenged democratic norms, and stirred the national soul. It all began with a bold, unapologetic statement from Nhlamulo Ndhlela, the national spokesperson for the MK party, a party that's been making serious waves in the 2024 elections under the leadership of none other than Jacob Zuma. Now, here's the quote that lit social media on fire: "Every single person that voted for the MK party is because their ancestors are voting through them. It's not you that voted, it's your ancestors, and there's no way John Steenhuisen has more ancestors than us." Let that sink in. According to Ndhlela, votes weren't simply cast by individuals with political opinions. Instead, he claims there were spiritual acts, ancestral interventions channeled through the living. And he didn't stop there. He took a direct jab at DA leader John Steenhuisen, implying that spiritual legitimacy is linked to ancestral lineage, a direct appeal to African identity politics. The statement has since triggered a fierce national debate. On one hand, supporters of the MK party say this is a refreshing embrace of indigenous belief systems. They argue that for far too long, African spirituality has been sidelined in favor of sterile, Western-style political discourse. They see Ndhlela's words as part of a necessary cultural decolonization, a bold reclaiming of African traditions in the democratic process. But on the other hand, critics are sounding the alarm bells. They argue that this kind of rhetoric dangerously blurs the lines between spirituality and state. Some legal scholars have warned that introducing mystical or religious reasoning into public electoral discourse undermines constitutional principles. After all, South Africa is a secular democracy, built on rational debate, evidence-based policymaking, and legal equality. So, is Ndhlela's statement a powerful expression of indigenous political identity? Or is it a threat to the integrity of democratic institutions? The MK party isn't backing down. In fact, party officials have doubled down on the remarks, saying they reflect a decolonized worldview. A senior member explained, "Western politics separate the soul of the people from their political decisions. We are not ashamed to say that African people still consult with their ancestors, and their ancestors guide their choices." It's clear the MK party is leaning heavily into cultural nationalism, using symbolism, language, and now even spirituality, to craft a political identity that feels familiar and empowering to many South Africans who've long felt excluded or disillusioned by mainstream parties like the ANC and the DA. And speaking of the ANC, the original liberation movement turned governing party, we are seeing something fascinating. Jacob Zuma, once the face of the ANC, is now positioning himself as the outsider, the disruptor, the spiritual insurgent. And that brings us to the second half of today's episode, a chilling claim made recently by Zuma that adds a new layer of mystery and conspiracy to the country's post-apartheid political history. In a public speech, Zuma alleged that he and Thabo Mbeki, two of the ANC's most powerful leaders during the transition to democracy, were sent on a covert mission to London in the early 1990s. According to Zuma, shortly after returning, they were both silently removed from key leadership positions. Zuma had been serving as chief of intelligence for the ANC, and Mbeki as chief negotiator during the multi-party talks with the apartheid government. But upon their return from this mysterious London trip, Zuma says Mosiuoa Lekota took over his intelligence role, and Cyril Ramaphosa replaced Mbeki as chief negotiator. Let that sink in. Zuma is implying that their removal was not just an internal reshuffle, but a deliberate power play, potentially influenced by foreign forces. He stopped short of naming who was behind it, but his cryptic tone suggests that he believes external actors, possibly Western governments or intelligence agencies, interfered with the ANC's internal processes to shape the outcome of the transition. Now, these are not small claims. They strike at the very heart of South Africa's democratic origin story. If true, it would mean that the first seeds of the post-apartheid state were sown not purely by local consensus and negotiation, but by shadowy, external hands manipulating the process from behind the scenes. Mbeki and Ramaphosa have yet to respond to these claims. But political analysts are already weighing in. Some say Zuma is just stirring the pot, trying to destabilize the ANC from the outside as part of his broader campaign with the MK party. Others believe there might be more to the story, that Zuma's intelligence background means he could be hinting at buried truths that were never meant to surface. Either way, the implications are profound. We are left to ask, who really shaped the outcome of our democracy? Who chose the negotiators? Who decided which leaders stayed in power, and which ones were replaced? All of this is playing out as South Africa enters one of its most unpredictable political periods since 1994. Coalition talks are underway, the ANC is losing its grip, and parties like the MK party are tapping into emotional, cultural, and even spiritual reservoirs of support. By invoking ancestors, and by revisiting the shadowy corridors of South Africa's political past, figures like Nhlamulo Ndhlela and Jacob Zuma are forcing the country to confront deep, unresolved tensions. Tensions between modern democracy and indigenous identity. Between constitutionalism and cultural belief. Between transparency and secret histories. So, where does this leave us? If you're a voter, a student, a policymaker, or just a concerned South African, this moment demands more than blind loyalty to party colors. It requires critical thinking. Because the future of our democracy might depend not just on who gets the most votes, but on what those votes really represent. Are they personal choices? Are they cultural expressions? Or are they, as Ndhlela suggests, the voice of the ancestors? Whatever your answer, one thing is clear, South African politics is changing. And it's no longer just about policy. It's about identity, legacy, memory, and power, both visible and invisible. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment below. Do you think our politics should make space for ancestral beliefs? Or should we stick strictly to secular democratic norms? We want to hear from you. See you next time.